Hi, hello. My name is Sean Gardner, and I'm going to be doing a video presentation on my risk management matrix. So, the first thing I'm going to discuss is the business that we're going to be using. So, this matrix is primarily focused on pilots. This business is a seaplane tour business based in South Florida. I have it typed here, but I'm just going to go over it to summarize. And the business basically does timed flights for anyone interested in having a seaplane experience. For example, if someone that comes into town wants to just go up and fly in a seaplane for an hour, 2 hours, they can pay for that time and do seaplane tours. Not only that, but the seaplane company will also do flights to local islands for day trips, so you can have a tropical seaplane experience. So, for example, a seaplane might take a group of people out to an island, and they might bring some like food and blankets and things like that, and hang out on the island for a day or for half a day or whatnot, and fly back to the base. Um, so the next thing that I want to discuss, which is not typed on here, but it is the colors on the matrix and the severity definitions, just so we can understand it better. So this matrix is based off of the FAA matrix, safety matrix, because it is centered and focused towards the pilots in this company. So green is acceptable risk, yellow is acceptable risk with mitigation, and red is unacceptable risk. So the severity definitions, which you see on the top here. So minimal would be negligible safety effect, minor slight damage to aircraft or physical discomfort to person, major physical distress or injury, substantial damage to aircraft. Hazardous is multiple serious injuries, fatal injuries, and catastrophic is multiple fatalities to all on board and loss of aircraft. Excuse me. So the three scenarios that I'm going to be using is notice a oil leak during your pre-flight inspection, thunderstorms en route during the flight, or a younger passenger on the tour. So the first one we're going to be discussing is the oil leak. So we're going to go down to the chart and say we're a pilot and we're going to do a pre-flight on an aircraft. We're about to go on a tour with 4 passengers. And we notice that there's an oil leak underneath the aircraft. There's a little puddle of oil. So we would go up to here and say, well, what would that risk be? That would probably be a major risk, major, maybe even hazardous. And you have to also discuss is that frequent, probable, remote, etc. Well, if you have a lot of oil leaking, there's a probable chance of a major issue. Now, this could also be depending on what's causing the oil leak. So, with a situation like this, you'd want to get out of the red or potentially yellow area and push it back to the green. And to do that, we would probably get a mechanic to look at the problem, or maybe even down the aircraft. For example, if there was too much oil filled in the aircraft after an oil change and it was just leaking out because there was too much, that would be more towards the green, maybe yellow side. Now, if this oil leak was caused by there's a leak in the engine somewhere, that will push you back up into the yellow and red zone. So for our next example, and by the way, this can be used for any sort of situation that you can notice during the pre-flight or any part of the flight. So the next example is thunderstorms en route during the flight. So I'm actually in Florida right now, and we have a tropical storm on the way. So this a time like this could be a great example of using your matrix. So let's say there's scattered thunderstorms en route, and they are severe thunderstorms. So you could say there's a probable chance of thunderstorms, and you're definitely in the major to hazardous risk, and depending on the severity of thunderstorms, it could be even catastrophic. So to mitigate these risks, you would probably have to either avoid the thunderstorms and fly somewhere else where you're not going to encounter any bad weather, or you might have to altogether just cancel the flight depending on the weather for that day. Another example, weather one, would be, as I said, a tropical storm. You're obviously looking at hazardous to catastrophic weather, and you definitely would not be able to fly. And for our last example, this one's unique to a business such as this one, is younger passengers on the tour. And what I mean by that is, let's say you have a 4-seater seaplane, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and you have a 6-year-old to a 10-year-old kid sitting in the front. they might want to grab the controls or hit buttons or things like that. So I would probably put that under a minor risk, and depending on what they decide to do, that could even be major. And that's probably a remote chance of that happening. So you're sitting here, and maybe even probable. So you're sitting here in the yellow area, maybe even green. But to mitigate a risk such as this one, maybe you can have younger passengers sit in the back of the airplane where they cannot reach the flight controls. Another way to mitigate these risks is to have a very good flight briefing and making it clear that the flight controls are not to be touched unless otherwise specified by the pilot. So this is my matrix, and thank you very much.